Well, here we are in the H145. We've got our good friend Ace Driver 2 along for the ride, and he's just picked up his very own H145. And we're going to go over some of the setup options and how to get this aircraft up and running from cold and dark. Now, he's got on a different build than I am. He's on build 491, and he switched back to 406 to see if that's why it was misbehaving. So there are some issues in and out of it, but let's dive in and see what we can do. Now, I've had this H145 here since 2020's Microsoft Flight Simulator was the sim I was using. So I've had this variant of the helicopter that long. I'm sure that inside of the High Performance Group app here, where it does give you the option to get updates and things like that, you're able to go back, but you can see that my installed build is 500. You should be able to use this to get your variant to that build. And right now my aircraft is in cold and dark. I've got all of the switches off. Everything is cold and dark. So what I'm going to do is come to my overhead panel, and I'm going to go over to the battery engage master switch, and I'm going to flip this down into its lowest setting, and it's kind of like a reset, and it'll flop back into position. And what that's going to do is fire up my monitors. Those shall get started. You can see the weight starting to compute. And now what I want to do is make sure that I configure the aircraft ready for flight. And I'm going to do that by going to the on standby battery. I'm going to turn that on. I'm also going to turn on my avionics masters 1 and 2. Then I'm going to come to the LAVCS, and I'm going to turn that into its center position, which is for the pilot. Then I'm going to change the pitot tubes here. Static on. And we're going to start with the prime pump of 1, and we can turn on our lights if we choose to. So now that the prime is on, and you don't really have to do this in any specific order, you can actually do prime both of these at the same time. And then we're going to come down to the flight switches here, the yellow switches on the center dash. You can change those into the center position, which will bring them both to idle, and you can see our rotor disc starting to spin. Once we have that spinning, what we can do is actually come down on this center panel again, where we have these 3 buttons that are now with a bright yellow word off right down here. And we can take the backup and turn it on. Autopilot 1 and 2 can both be on as well. We're going to make sure that we have enough fuel inside of the aircraft. Everything looks good there. Now, to change this, you can actually use the dial that's underneath it, and you can right-click with your mouse on the center small wheel of this knob and kind of move between the two. And then with the one behind it, you can roll with the cursor, with the center wheel of your mouse, and change that value. Once it's in there, you can also change it with the smaller knob, and that's going to give you a different increment as well. So you can change the level of payload inside of your aircraft. Then you can hit value once you're happy with the values that you've entered. Now, the way I like to configure my dash is the VMS over on the left, and I'll put the DMAP on the center. Totally up to you how you do that. But now that we've got our engines spooled up, what I'm going to do is come back into the overhead panel and change these to the transfer pump and turn the primes off. Everything else is in good condition. So at that point, now what we can do is come down to our engine 1 and engine 2, and I'm just going to close the cover, and that's going to automatically change this into a flight indent. And once our torque rating gets built up and we have the idle switch to that green and white, like that on engine 2, and then engine 1 should be following right after that. And there we go. We have our aircraft in a flight ready condition. So for the iPad, there's, again, just a ton of information here that you could change within this aircraft. I do like to keep the damage on. The cyclic follow-up trim I have set to both. The cyclic displace rest time is the shortest amount of time possible at 250 milliseconds. And the collective increase-decrease step size is just going to be set to default. I have the hands-on detection for the cyclic stability set to dead zone, and same thing with the pedal sensitivity. It's set to dead zone, not motion rate or none. So another thing you want to do with this is to actually play with the curves of your controls. In order to do that, you're going to come in and use the escape key, go to the settings, and in controls, we're going to start off with the rudder pedals. So on the throttle, you'll see that I have an image of my thrustmasters, rudders, and throttle control. So I'm going to go into this by search input, and then I'm just going to do a input with my rudders pedals. And then after that's been detected, I can come into the cogwheel and tweak the action curve. You can see that mine is not straight. Now, one thing that I do like that Microsoft has changed in Sim Update 1 is that we now see the ball moving as we are on or off our pedals. So if I take my feet off of my pedals, you can see that the ball is steady in the center, but there is a sensitivity of a positive number of 0.2 for both the sensitivity positive and negative. If you're coming into the sim fresh, yours is probably going to look like a straight line. And what this means is at the beginning of my movement, the pedals are actually going to be more sensitive than they should be by default. And that's for both the left and the right input. And I do not have a dead zone on these because there's no real flutter. When I leave them alone, there's no phantom electrical signals being read. So I'm happy with it that way. But I do have an extremity dead zone of 0.05. And that just means that I'm allowed more movement or less movement than a full stroke with my left or right foot, right? So I can actually get a full amount of movement with a very little movement from my feet. Once that's set up, your tail rotor movements are going to be probably a lot easier to control. And now we're going to go into the cyclic and what I have done there. So with the cyclic, I can search by input, and I'm just going to do a left lateral axis. And we'll look at, once again at the action curve. And now this is set up with a dead zone. And this number really just fluctuates sometimes. I like the 0.04 personally. It's a nice spot in the middle where no movement can be done until you actually really move the stick. And you can see that the extremity dead zone on this one is the opposite, right? So it's actually taking more off of the movement. So the input of this one becomes more sensitive throughout its entire input range. And once that's done, you're pretty well good to go. I haven't done anything with the throttle control as far as the curves go, but those two settings were extremely important in getting the aircraft to respond the way it should. The options that you can come into, these are, again, pretty much well up to you. You know, the downwash visual, pilot, automatic hide, head only, that kind of thing. But this is something that I've found intriguing for a very long time, and it's shared cockpit support. And I've never really been able to get it to work with anyone. And I believe that's just because that HPG does not yet have that functioning. But at this point now, you're ready to take missions. In order to do that, you know, you can come into the aircraft itself, and you can go to equipment, and you can configure this any way you'd like, with or without emergency floats, this, that, and the other thing. You can change your fuel load from inside the iPad as well. change out who's in what seat. All right, so that guy disappeared. You can even, like it says down here, is you can close the doors and everything from this iPad as well. Everything about the helicopter can be controlled from inside of it. So when you switch the battery on, nothing happens. So Ace, what I want you to do is go into this iPad right here and choose aircraft and setup, and then go to where it says cold and dark and click cold and dark. All right, that's going to bring your aircraft all the way down. It's going to shut everything off and we can start from scratch. So if you're saying that when you switch it on the battery, nothing happens, right? So what you're going to want to do is, again, with this specific master battery right here, you don't want to just turn it on, right, to its center position like this. What you want to do is actually left click and hold down the left mouse button and then move it down until it automatically resets itself. Right? At that point, your monitors will come up. You can do the LAVCS to pilot. Turn on the statics. I can actually go right to the transfer pump if I want to and skip the primer. And I don't really have to do this in any particular order. You know, I've done this differently both times I've shown it. But now I can turn on the, the standby batteries here and the avionics masters, make sure that those are all on. And once that's set, I can just come down. Wow. And I can change this to flight ready without even putting it in the idle condition, and just close those gates and the aircraft will start up. Now from the iPad, you also see that it has the option here to just go ready for takeoff. So if you can't go through all of the button presses, see what happens when you just click on ready for takeoff, if that will engage your aircraft, as it should. If you click on the time within the iPad, it brings up the autopilot section of your aircraft as well. And it is asking to recover autopilot. And before, when we did this, we had to turn these autopilots back up off, right? But if I do this from the iPad and just say recover autopilot and come back down, you can see that that's actually performing the same procedure. The backup and both autopilots are now on. It can be done from both sides. The little drop down caret to the right will bring up the beep trim, which is something that you can map because this is a trimmable aircraft. So again, we'll dive back into the settings. So if I go to controls and we are on the cyclic, I have search by input and I have my center hat switch mapped this way. Now what I did was pressed up on that hat switch, and that is to decrease rotor longitudinal trim. That's going to trim the aircraft in a forward configuration. If I search by input and go backwards, like towards myself, that is increase rotor longitudinal trim, and that's going to put the nose up. And if I search by input and go with a left input, that's decrease rotor lateral trim. And that's going to tilt the aircraft to the left. And if I do the opposite, and now I use the right input with that hat switch, I have that mapped to increase rotor lateral trim. Okay, so that's how I have mapped the trim of the H145 to my cyclic. And when we come back into this and resume, you can see that as I put input with my finger on my cyclic, you can see the inputs are actually being recognized. Come back out of that, and we can begin to take a mission. If do we have Ace up in the air yet? He's disappeared. Looks like we got the Marine Corps up in there, the F-18 over there. Very easy helicopter to hover, even with the assists off, as it is meant to be configured with all of the assists off. There's Ace. I'm getting some horrible frame rates out of this right now. I'm sure that has everything to do with the complexity of the airport and my settings. Ace also said they'd had a problem with this aircraft just kind of flipping while in flight, even without overspeeding the aircraft, like under 100 knots, and it'll just flip on them. And I think that the sensitivities with the controllers will more than likely help with that. And learning the sensitivity of the aircraft itself, because it doesn't take a lot of input to get this aircraft to do what you want it to. One setting that I do like to turn off with this inside of that iPad is the vortex ring state. If you do have that on, you're going to find yourself literally just dropping out of the sky on a pretty consistent basis. He's in the military livery. What'd be great is if I could get into your chopper. Were you able to get it started? There you go. Yeah, he's off the ground. And you said that you were having issues with your iPad as well, as if that wouldn't work. Were you meaning just to go in and start a mission? And with that is, did you also get the action pack that goes with it? The action pack is basically where all of the mission sets are originating. So you can go into the HPG missions. And rescue. Change the range. So a little bit closer. And begin taking calls. What I do enjoy about this is once you do begin taking calls, as soon as you complete a mission, it's going to automatically start to generate the next mission. So there we go. It does say fly to the accident scene, and we have the blue line on both maps. Looks like it's extremely close to the end of the runway here. We'll see if Ace can see any of the ambulance or injured individuals on the ground that I'm generating. Oh, the frame rates are atrocious. Looks like I can see smoke over here. Start paying attention to flying. Yeah, the frame rates are killing it. We got a fire at the toll booth. And it looks like the fire truck is actually parked in the building. The low frame rate is making this very difficult. And again, it's probably, I think I didn't change any of my graphics settings before I started the stream, so I'm still on higher settings than I should be right now. Distance away. Coming down a little hard. But now that we're on the ground and we're near our rescue, I can literally just open up the gates on the flight controllers and bring those to idle. So Ace, have you been able to get it started from cold and dark? Literally, the only animation is him writhing around on the ground and the lights flashing. I am looking forward to getting an updated graphics card. Very much so. I did find a duplicate 2080 Ti that I did purchase and immediately returned because it was delivered with a bent heat shield, and one of the pins on the PCIe lane had a scorch mark on it. So yeah, I didn't even install that into my rig whatsoever. It did not look safe to do it, so I immediately returned that, and I'm going to have to rethink my strategy to upgrade graphics for this PC. Again, if you didn't know, this is only a 2080 Ti graphics card. I am running a Ryzen Threadripper 2950X with a 128 gigabytes DDR4 RAM, but the 2080 Ti really does struggle when it comes to the ultra settings, that's for sure. Let's see what we can do about picking out a hospital here. How about down here to Medical City, Las Colinas? We'll accept that. There we go. And bring our engines back to flight ready. Soon. There we go. Does not take a lot of forward momentum to get the aircraft moving either. The inputs for this, with my settings the way they are extremely minimal. And once I'm in a forward flight and I've got a good power setting, usually at around that 50% torque, I can usually just hands off and put that just nice and easy. Now, the biggest thing to controlling this is to watch this monitor right here, and you can see that there is a yellow diamond and a yellow dot. Right? These have a huge significance, right? So you can see here that the orientation of the chopper is now climbing, right? Because the yellow diamond is above the horizon. If you put the yellow diamond on the horizon, you're going to be in forward flight and level. When it comes to being in a hover, the two are different because of the tilt of the aircraft. Usually the yellow dot will be on the 5-degree mark in order to be in a stable hover. Very important to keep an eye on those. Very curious, Ace. Did you ever get the helicopter to start up from cold and dark? Looks like the frame rate's cleaned up once I got away from that airport. Fort Worth is a little bit detailed. And you can see the smoke coming off of my helipad here. Again, this is in that wireframe. Bizarre smoke, but it's there. See, now I've got the yellow dot at the 5-degree mark, but the diamond is below because I'm in a descent. Looks like we've got a little bit of a stovepipe landing approach here. Lots of trees covering the helipad. See if we can't sneak in there. Down. Again, we'll just open up the gates, put them in an idle. There we go. Not really on the helipad, but definitely just barely clearing that tree. what I like about this so much more than the career mode is that it actually has me going to a hospital and not just right back to the same airport and having to do that hold short nonsense and taxi this. It's just so much better. The experience is frustrating because we have HPG as a partner. And I don't know why they wouldn't just incorporate an already working system. It just doesn't, never made sense to me. Again, once we get those engines fired back up, we're ready to go. You can already see that it's starting to dispatch to a sporting accident already, and I can just hit close and it's going to immediately put up another mission. No waiting, no hesitation, just straight into it. We are flight ready. Something like that. And again, just very little input. Set that torque around 50. Yeah, actually, Ace, I was doing the same exact thing. What's weird, though, is it just randomly cleaned up as soon as I got away from the Fort Worth airport. I'm also wondering if that's just another multiplayer stability issue. All right, so now you're on the 491 build. Let's see if you can do the cold and dark start. Just inside of 1 mile away from our target. Still no visual. I see him on the other side of the tree here. Mr. Ben Wilson, good afternoon. How you doing? Thanks for joining in. There's the ambulance, just on top of that power line right there. I'm doing really good, Ben. Taking the H145 for a spin here, helping Ace Driver getting his configured. Today we are in like I said, the Hype Performance Group's H145, and we're conducting some HEMS missions in free flight using Hype Performance Group's Action Pack. This aircraft has been around since Flight Sim 2020. Now, one thing I used to have keybound as well were the engine controls, so I could literally just hit a button on my throttle to bring that down, but I haven't remapped that yet. What's on your agenda today, Ben? Where are you hanging out? I would love to see this chopper in career mode. Absolutely. What I want to see more, though, is the MH60. This one is coming to a career mode near you in just a matter of time, and I have a feeling that that is going to be a much better aircraft than even this 145. I kind of like the 125. What I don't like about career mode in general is just how horrible it really is when it comes to the taxi and hold shorts, not being able to end missions, random ATC infractions where they give you like a flight path that goes directly through a restricted airsfield. You know, it's like, it's so frustrating on so many levels. I find that being in the 145 in the free flight is just much more enjoyable. I like the sportiness of the 125. The responsiveness of that aircraft is a lot of fun when you're doing fast, low-level flight. Very nice. 5 PC-24s in medevac. Very cool. Yeah, I have increased my hangar now. I want to say I have 42, maybe 43 aircraft. And I've got them all over the place. Lots of HEMS 125s, a bunch of the cargo planes. The cargo planes seem to earn the most passive income, so that's why those are in there. Nice. All 3 companies, very cool. Very cool. Let's go into this hospital here. Spool those rotors back up. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with just about every plane. My biggest issue with the PC-24 is if you come in with too much fuel when you land, your front landing gear no longer has the ability to steer the aircraft. And that does have everything to do with how much fuel is in your tank when you land. I barely fly the PC-24. What I do is just keep those in the hangar earning passive incomes. I've even gotten a 125 in flight seeing just to spend the time in the air. And then every once in a while what I'll do is get inside of one of, I think it's the 340 cargo plane, and just autopilot that thing, turn the volume up and get other things done around the house while it flies, and then I'll just come in and reply to ATC when it needs it, and just let it kind of work in the background. Yeah, before the fixes it was pretty ridiculous. Well, we fought through it though, and so far it's paying off. I'm very curious to see just how well they do with the second sim update. Yeah, pretty much. They took a lot of shortcuts. That is for sure, Ben, without a doubt. And copy paste is probably really accurate. And unfortunate. No, I haven't touched beta at all, Ben. Not even a little bit. I'm just regular in-sim free flight right now. USA server on the west. I'm actually refusing to do the beta tests. I've heard mixed reports. So there's some things about it that are doing better and some other things that are very frustrating. But I think it's just Microsoft and Asobo's failure to do a full beta. And if that makes any sense, you know what I mean? They're not allowing all of the functionality at the same time. They're only testing little pieces as far as I know. Yep, I want to be surprised. That's exactly right. And I still believe that having, you know, the NVIDIA profile inspector working is doing more for the simulator than Microsoft themselves. And of course the DLSS swapper, making sure that your DLSS is the newest version, is huge when it comes to flight on a PC. I have no idea how you would accomplish that inside of an Xbox, but down once again. This aircraft is a whole bunch of fun. I would be surprised, though, if they actually integrated this into career mode. I would be happy if they did, but I, for some reason, don't see it happening, at least not anytime soon. We were even supposed to get the action pack capability with the H160, but that is also still not available. And I think the H160 is even a better aircraft than this 145. So when you're turning on the battery, you're still not getting anything. So Ace, what happens when you come into your iPad like I've got here and you go to aircraft and you just say ready for takeoff? Do you see the switches come on at that point? All right, so I can, let's see if I can come and find you over there. Are you still at the airport? Close this up, get it ready for flight. Come into the missions, and instead of dispatching, what I can do is literally just abort. And now we're out of the mission set. iPad is off. Really? See, and the iPad that they have in the base sim, like this, you know, EFB, when that's on the aircraft, the power button actually works, but not in this version. So you're not getting any information on your IFB or your iPad at all like this? I'm very curious if it is the build that you have, and you said you were on, let's see, 491. I'm curious if you go all the way through to 500, if it works at that point. It may just be the model that you have. You can, I mean, in the iPad here, I could, if I have a little nav map brought up, I could actually start that up too, just directly through this. You can set up the tablet, PC time, sim time, all that good stuff. Nothing at all. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that that's the build you're on. If you can keep updating your build until you get to 500. What's interesting though is that the helicopter functions for you and the iPad is the only thing not working. And I start to get the lower frame rates as soon as we get close. So again, I'm going to say that this is the proximity issue that Microsoft was having before that they said they had a little fix for when they did Sim Update 1, but apparently that's not even the case. I can't even see your aircraft, I just see your name tag. And as soon as we get close to one another, our frame rates just go to, they're just tanking. There you go, now I can see the bird. No, I am not on live weather. I actually just have the preset of a few clouds in here. And I do that really to try to maintain bandwidth. The less live information you use, generally, the smoother the sim runs. But of course, when you start to get close to these larger airports and it starts caching this information in, everything starts to get pretty chunky. Can't even tell if you're following me or if you're just on the ground back there. Oh, it does say 485. Yeah. End of the month, huh? Yeah, Ace, when you're in this thing, if you want to go into the settings at all, you have to be on the ground, right? So I'll even demonstrate it one time here as well. If I go to just escape and come back into the aircraft, it starts this really jacked up oscillation that you can only get out of if you land. I don't know why that happens. There's no autopilot engaged or anything like that, but anytime you come in and out of the menu system, the whole helicopter just starts freaking out. Right? You can see my torque is, even though my throttle right now is all the way down, my torque is pinned in the red. It's basically a useless helicopter at this point, so the only way to get out of it is to like restart. It's highly unfortunate. And at such a complex airport, that reload's going to take quite a bit of time. A long time. A very long time. Hilarious. Alright, So we'll come back in. And again, we'll do the cold and dark startup in no particular order. But I could come to the overhead panel. And again, I'm going to left click the battery master and engage that all the way down until it resets itself. Then I can turn on my batteries, LAVCS to pilot. I'm going to turn on the statics, turn on the transfer pumps and some lights. And I can come down to the lower panel and I'll engage my autopilots. The backup hasn't been engaged yet. And we can just put that right to flight condition. Cheers and good morning, Northland Air, man. Been a while. How you doing? Tuning in from work again, I see. Everything looks good. Turn that off. Come into the aircraft. We'll go to equipment. I do not like the floats on these things. We're going to put the bear paws on, put the wire protection system on there. Little nose cone. There we go. And again, one of the favorite features is you can actually do the maintenance of the aircraft with a single button push. Come into that maps. And we can start taking missions. I always like to take that range down. Dispatch in there. It's about 7 miles out. Flight ready. All right. Well, hi there, Mr. No Head. I think the frame rate issue is definitely this airport. At least most of the issue. And of course, this is an autopilot capable helicopter too, so if you come in and press the time on your iPad, I could literally just press navigation and altitude, and it's going to lock in, and it's going to fly me there. I can be hands off. Interesting, the 491 is the latest available. Very strange. Huh. And you're doing that from here? let's do something. If I pause this for a second here, let's see if I can help you out. So when you come in and you're in the H145 and you go update available, manage it, show hidden versions. Interesting. That's I'm actually seeing the same thing. Installed build does say 500. It only gets lower from there. That is a good question, Ace. I'm very curious how I am on a build version that doesn't even seem to be available. Huh. And the action pack? And that's the version of the Hype's Ops Center that you have, 1.0.49. I'm intrigued. That's actually mind-boggling how I'm on a version that doesn't even seem to be available yet. Very, very intriguing. That would honestly be something that I would talk to Hype about, maybe get involved with their chat and see what information they could give you on that, because I honestly have no idea. I'm on a version that isn't even listed. That is very intriguing. I wonder how that's even possible. I haven't done any updates to it since I've started using it in 2024. Maybe they removed that model? I don't know, because I mean, we even showed like the ones that were hidden and still not there. Very intriguing, brother. Wow. It's like I've got the unicorn or something. That's absolutely bizarre. That has me reeling. Ooh, now he's in the luxuries. I like it. again. Are you able to see any of the ambulance or anything like that on the ground, Ace? I think what I'm going to do is try to follow up with High Performance Group and see what the deal is with the 491 to 500. That's got me going. That is a very intriguing dilemma. Curious if anybody else out there with the 145 can tell us what their version of the build is that they're flying, and if they're experiencing the same thing, and how do I have this unicorn build 500? Cannot see the dial that shows the RPM. Even when you get closer and further away from it. What if you were to try to turn it off and turn it back on with that button in the upper left-hand corner of each monitor? Oh, in the exterior view. Yeah, I've never even put those on, actually. For the most part, when I'm in the 145, I like to stay inside the cockpit until I'm on the ground. And the sim just crashed. Ouch. I'm sorry you're having a rough experience with that, Ace. Yeah, let me put it on the ground before I change the settings, but I will definitely do that. See if I can put up the visual assistance for the exterior view. So if we go into settings, flight interface, external camera, HUD and external view, we'll change it to full. And that's what mine's got. Airspeed, compass, fuel, angle of attack, altitude, and vertical speed. Change the barometer. Yeah, that's effective too if I reset the barometer. Do you have yours on a full? I mean, I don't see the RPM either, but... Yeah, okay. Yeah, the RPM definitely missing. And I feel like there's a lot of space between the airspeed and where the fuel and angle of attack are. Like there's a gigantic gap between there where it looks like some kind of telemetry should be in that location between those, but it's not, which is probably the RPM and more engine information. It's got me going for a building fire. It's just another reason why I like to keep it inside the aircraft for this one, because you can see all the telemetry. Well, at least I can. It's unfortunate that with that build you're stuck with right there is not fully functional at this point. Like I said, though, I will be getting in touch with the HPG to see what the issue is there. Because everything else about it is, I mean, on my end of it is fully functional, but I'm on a build that we can't even see. I hadn't noticed that prior. That's very, very interesting. Might help if I zoomed out of this map a little bit. Not really worried about too much cross traffic coming down this runway, apparently. Just diving right in. Is there a helipad near me? Yeah, probably. Any one of these hospitals around here has probably got a helipad on it. The medical city. Las Colinas. It doesn't say what the ICAO code is for it, though. At least not on this map. If I check the EFB, I could probably pull one up. K9 November Foxtrot Romeo. Kilo Niner November Foxtrot Romeo. Maybe even closer here. X-Ray Alpha 21. not too far away. Ooh, those frame rates are nasty. Nasty. Squirrel. I can see you, Ace. Still don't know why these floats I haven't come off. More like it. Try a different one. We'll go to Baylor. The best place I've seen this is actually on, again, Reunion Island. It's by far my favorite place to fly in the simulator doing these missions just because of the dynamic topography on that island. Super fun to play with. Nice. He's got the Philippines model this time. I do enjoy that paint scheme very much. Absolutely. On our way up to Baylor. I really do wish they would incorporate the rotor being in motion instead of it just being static like that. It really does take away from the immersion of it. love it. Sneaking up. Dig it. Down again. I love it. You know what I mean? You could just in and out of these missions all day long. I can't wait to get a hold of High Performance Group and figure out why exactly we have this Unicorn 500 build, though. That is a very intriguing thing. That was a hell of a landing right there, my man. You've got the hot little bounce in your step. Oh, in the old sim in 2020, I used to be able to see other people get out of their helicopters like this, but instead of putting a person on the ground, it used to generate a brand new helicopter, and you would see the helicopter move across the ground as if it were the person. Is anything like that happening for you, or is it just a helicopter sitting on the ground static by itself? Get it loaded up. Now, the issues that you're having with like your RPMs outside and the iPad not working completely, is that in every version of the 145 that you get into, or is it just a specific version? Like, have you tried the other variants? Yeah, okay, Charlie, man. I wish they would bring it to Xbox too, man, because this is by far like the most fun you could have doing search and rescue missions in the sim. And once the true functionality of this is unleashed, we're gonna have a good time with this, because there's, you know, share cockpit. I can share missions. I still have to figure out how we're downloading and importing those missions once we share them. That functionality is not working yet. I've been testing it now for quite some time. But I am able to save missions that I create. Same for all the variants. Yeah, it's got to be the build number. And again, I'm going to get in touch with HPG to learn more about that. Or maybe even just, I don't know. Yeah, I thought about like trying to file share the variant that I have with you, but with the key code and everything like that that you need when you download it. I'm not sure if that would work. Definitely worth a conversation, though. See if we can actually try to take this one with a winch, even though we have definitely got room to land. We're going to try to hoist this one out. And again, from inside the aircraft, you know, back when you're in the career mode, you're doing the search and rescue missions, trying to do these hoist missions from inside the cockpit of the 125 is nearly impossible. Where when you click on, you know, switch to hoisting here, you get this nice little dot which shows you your target in the relation to your aircraft. So it's pretty easy to be able to get your rescue swimmer where you want them. Come on. And also with this, if you come into the menu here and I go to previous and data, click data one more time, now it shows you the length of the hoist cable that's being dispatched. Right now it's at 0. So you can actually see how far off the ground you are, which is something else that would be really helpful when we're doing like the cargo hook missions. Well, how much of that slack line is underneath your aircraft? Nice. It says Philippines Coast Guard variant, but it's got you dressed like the U.S. Coast Guard. So now the hoist line is out. It's at 32 feet, 22 feet, 12 feet, 2 feet, 0 feet. Should be recovered. It says pick a hospital. Go a little further. You know what? I don't want to get near that airport again. Let's go back over here to the Baylor. There we go. And we're in. Bring an ace driver with. so bizarre that you're not getting anything on your aircraft to work. I mean, even though it's an older build, the older builds worked. The compatibility with 2024 may be off, though. That's the thing. Patient on board. Got Ace Driver flying out back. Can't see him, but he's there. It's pretty great. Another thing about the 125 in career mode is there's just nothing inside of the helicopter besides these rescue workers on their knees. It's so comical. There's no effort put into it at all. So we're actually flying in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Texas, USA. That's probably a really good point, Northland Air. Absolutely phenomenal feedback right there. That is definitely worth a shot, Ace. Instead of finding it on these update center, go directly to their Discord. Good point. The smoke is very comical. Down on another one. haven't done in a while is actually checked my fuel. We all know that we've been there before. I'm doing all right. Fire back up. And what's great about this too is at any point I can come into Hype, go to the mission editor, and let's just plan a new rescue custom. We are in the Dallas, Texas area, Fort Worth. So now what I can do is kind of bounce between the two. And I can say, let's go here, and we're going to abort the mission. Connect to the scenario editor on my PC. And open that back up, and now you can see my aircraft on the ground. We could mark this as a hospital landing site. And let's say we wanted to do a water rescue. So let's just take another object here. And we're going to find a sinking boat. Let's put that in the water somewhere relatively close. Let's put it on the river out here. And we're going to get our injured human, drop them in just about the same location. And now it just needs a start location, so we'll put that in the same spot just to make things easy. And now we can hit Save Changes. Close that up. And this should be the mission that we just created. Just like that. Now the one thing about these is generally the missions aren't generating over water until you do them by hand. Or if you're doing the offshore missions, but those are in a specific location. What's interesting is I do not see the boat. There it is. The smoke gets me every time. Just can't get enough of that smoke. So now what I can do is actually put this into hover. Open this up. And now what I can actually do is try to trim this aircraft into a hover over my survivor. Not even close, but we don't want to get that rotor wash on them too much. And what's funny about this is while they're out there, he's actually going to walk on water. And this wireframe smoke, man, come on. I like that we got the backup on the scene. This is great. And Ace, I would definitely take Northland's suggestion and see what you could do off of their Discord channel to see if you can't get the 500 build from their Discord. Yeah, man, I've actually been doing the same thing. That Huey is a good time. The UH-1H, great chopper. I love the sound model of that aircraft. We got Ace taking a bath over here. That's pretty good. Did your floats come out? And again, I'm just using trim from the settings I made earlier on my hat switch. Doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be close. And it's going to automatically select the hospital that I predetermined. I do still have the aircraft in a hover. Take that off. I agree. That would be fantastic. I mean, if you could put this inside of a Huey. Which is also something that really baffles me about career mode anyway. Like, what really needs to be different about a helicopter to do a flight seeing mission? Other than the graphics of having somebody in the back seat, which you can already do. So why not just be any aircraft available in the simulator should be something that you could use. It makes like no sense at all. But I would much rather do flight seeing missions in a Huey than the 125 or any fixed wing or anything like that. You know, I want to be able to pick and choose any aircraft in my hangar. Why is that not a thing? And the fact that HPG is a partner of Microsoft and none of this already existing technology was used for career mode. It's so frustrating. And just like that, homemade mission, designed, flown, and executed in minutes. I didn't have to hold short. No talking to ATC. The frame rates are just horrible right now, though. I don't know why. Definitely not accurate information being displayed there. Yeah, I have a feeling if you did hold your breath, you'd be purple pretty quick. And yeah, it's going to take them a very long time to do it. Right around the time that they introduced Flight Sim 2028, I would assume. Where they bring it back to something that you can download instead of having to stream it. Now after that, if I wanted, I could just go right to abort missions and head right back into HEMs that are... It is being optimistic. I love it. But I love the fact that you can just bounce in between these missions, you know, from homemade to pre-made. It's absolutely a fantastic setup. Everybody, I sincerely appreciate you being here for today's video about the H145 setup, configuration, controls, and capabilities. It's been fun. Again, Ace Driver, thanks for the suggestion on the video. Hopefully you're going to be able to get that 500 build off of their website, or Discord, I should say. Northland Air, it's always great to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, for now, I will say that it's been a blast. It's been a ball. That's it. That's all. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one.